Good afternoon and welcome to Bear This and That. I'm your host, Cynthia DeLeonardo. We're going to explore the wants and true desires of successful relationships. I'm going to take you behind closed doors to talk about how we can make our relationships the best we have ever had. We have a great show today. We're talking about when our relationships meets the military, okay? The demands of the relationships versus the demands of the military. And I am honored and so privileged today to have as a guest Sergeant Jon Skipper with me today. Welcome to the show, Sergeant Skipper.
Thank you.
It is great to have you. You have quite a story to tell. You have 22 years invested in the Army. And a 28-year successful marriage with 3 children.
That is true.
So today we're going to talk about what happens when you combine the demands of the military with the demands of a relationship. It's great and both challenging.
Well, challenging is that's exactly right.
Let's take it from the beginning, shall we? So you met your lovely wife when you were stationed in the Army. Am I correct on that?
Right. I was from Germany, and I at that time.
Okay. And that was 28 years ago. When is your anniversary, by the way, since we're on this topic? So we're getting hot and close to your 29th anniversary?
Right.
That's fantastic. Good for you. So you met while you were in the Army. So she already knew your commitment to the military is my point right now.
Yes, she did.
How did you manage that?
Well, I said we're getting pretty serious. I talked to her about like what life was as far as the military is concerned. How much time we spent away from home, not just in the field, but deployments and different things we were committed to.
But dating for you is not like, for the rest of us that are not in the military. What was courting her like for you? Yes. That would be dating, yes?
Yeah, time to get a hold of her a decent time back here in the States and talk to her for about an hour, maybe 2 hours. At that time, it cost a pretty penny to call.
Okay. So what was, let's take a stroll. I know it's been 29 years ago, but let's take a stroll. How do you date when you're in the military? How do you keep the relationship fresh, exciting, and at a place where you can build something? It's hard to build something when you're not together. Am I correct on that? It's you have to be together to build in order to build something.
Well, we spend some time together when you're at home, but then when you live and go to Germany like I did, it was pretty much a case where once I made a point to call her at least once a week, and when I during the week, at least maybe 2-3 times a month, I always send her flowers or candy or something like that, just to let her know I was still interested. You might want to say.
That's really wonderful. So what was that like though? Were you able to get close, or was your dating extended because of your time apart? How were you able to get close in this relationship?
Well, it really wasn't physical. It was more at an intelligent level at that time. The fact that you were constantly talking 6,000 miles or so apart.
Right.
Okay. So it was really a case of you got to know each other pretty darn well just by conversations.
Yes. I love this because you just said it. You got to know each other because it wasn't a physical thing. You weren't there to see each other. You weren't there to hold each other's hands. But you were available to get to know what was going on inside of your minds on an intellectual basis. So you were able to find out so much more. Would you say that you established a friendship this way?
Yeah, first it became a friendship. There's no doubt about that. You actually got to know each other's interest, what they, liked in life, if what their taste in music was, sports, etc. Those conversations went on for hours about music and sports and everyday activities as far as what each of us did, when we were apart.
So what was it for the two of you? She's not on the phone today. So I'm asking you, what was the attraction? Because the odds are weighing heavily against the relationship when it is this sort of distance. So what was the attraction that kept you both together?
Well, we have to say that she's actually a pretty sweet person. Without a doubt. That's one thing that attracted me. At the time I met her, she was a data processor, so she had a professional background to her. Okay, and she was looking to continue her education as far as college was concerned, and she had a bright attitude about life, just the same way I did.
So you just liked each other.
That would be true.
Okay. And how long did this go on before it took a turn for the serious?
It was probably about 14 months before I found myself walking downtown one day in Eater Oversight, and I passed this jewelry store, which I just took a look in the mirror and I saw this an engagement ring, and I looked at him, and as I was thinking about this, I said, "You must be sick." But I went out and bought it anyways. What I did was went back to barracks, got a shoebox, okay, wrapped it up, put it in the shoebox, her ring and the engagement. Well, actually, I put the engagement ring in, and not the other two rings. Wrapped them up, then wrapped up the shoebox itself, and on top of the shoebox, I put a letter, which said, "Do not open until I call you on such and such a date." Wrapped that up and mailed it to her.
Did she know that this was coming?
No.
Had you discussed marriage at all in the 14 months?
No.
Really? So this was a complete surprise?
Yeah, it's like I said, I was walking downtown in Riverside one day, you got to figure a single Jedi in Germany. The last thing she should be thinking about is a 5'5" blonde back at home, but that's the only thing I can think about.
This is very promising. You must have known that she was going to say yes. Did you?
Well, I had a pretty good idea.
That's quite a chance you took, that it was a complete surprise. It's so different today. People discuss, their feelings on marriage, and a lot of folks today don't want to put themselves out there unless they think that they're kind of guaranteed a yes. So I think that's wonderful that, you felt good about it. It's what you wanted to do, and it takes courage to do that. That's great. So you sent this. This is very romantic, by the way, with the letter and the shoebox. This is all very cute and romantic and sweet. Yes?
Well, I thought it would be.
Yes, well, it is. So that's how it happened. So the phone call came, and she was allowed to open up the gift.
Yeah, I told her Sunday night, it was like Monday morning my time, like 2 a.m., and it was probably about 8 p.m. Back here in Pennsylvania. And I called And I asked her, did you get the package? She said, yeah. And I said, okay. Did you open it up? She said, no. The letter on top of the box said, do not open up, until you call. I said, well, you do me a favor and open the box and read the note on top. So she opened the box up. I could hear her open the box up. And she read the note. And there was some silence there, which I kind of figured she was actually, gauging upon the ring. Okay. And I just, said, well, and she said yes.
That is awesome. That is just awesome. That's great. So almost 29 years later, here you are. Tell me what that was like. So now you're engaged. You're committed. It's going great. When do you see each other at this point?
Well, I took leave about 6 months later to come back to Pennsylvania and get married.
Yes.
So I was home for 14 days. So I was home for 6 days. We had the wedding. We had a small honeymoon, and I went back to Germany.
Did it feel rushed for you this time?
No, usually took 14 leaves at a time, so I had it perfectly scheduled. And, did the things that, we had planned. As far as, the prep for the wedding was already done. It was nothing big. It was a pretty small wedding. And just, family and close friends. Had a reception at her sister's, who had this, humongous farmhouse. That was pretty cool. And after that, we spent some time in the Poconos.
That's nice. That's nice. She felt great. You guys were committed to each other, and she was okay with the demands that are made upon you to be a military spouse, and what that life could possibly mean for her and the future children, right? One thing, I know this is not applicable to you, but you can probably speak on it a bit about the numerous amounts of military marriages that happen right on the heels of deployment, the stroke of midnight. Folks rush, and everyone on both sides are panicked that someone is going away, and in order to hold on to that partner, a marriage takes place. Are you familiar with those types of marriages in the military?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of those, yes.
Mm-hmm. And most times I hear that they're not successful.
Well, that's true. Based on the case where it might have been a short relationship, and they kind of figured that, this would be a good time to go ahead and get married. Or it turns out to be that she never got married in the first place.
Because they haven't taken the time. Well, you know what? It all boils down to, if we don't take the time, a sufficient amount of time to get to know each other, like you did. I give you so much credit for doing that. That you did take the time to get to know each other. During those 14 months is a nice amount of time to do that, and the fact that you spent it in the way that you did, that you were talking, you probably spent more time talking than a lot of us today in our busy schedules actually see each other anyway. So,
That's true. I can really tell you it wasn't a physical relationship. It was more of a conversational relationship, which worked out quite well.
It's a great way to fall in love with somebody. It really is. So here we are on the heels of your new marriage. What was that like for her? She's not here, but I'm asking you to kind of step in and fill in the blanks. What was that like for her, not having her new husband there with her?
Well, it's kind of like a case where I was constantly getting the messages from mail, and our calls is one of them, bring her to Germany. And at that particular time, I was waiting on housing because it wasn't about to live on the economy because it was really expensive. So it took a few months. During that time, she worked and saved up some cash, and I did the same. And eventually got to a point where I flew home and we flew back to Germany together.
Let's fast forward, if we will. So now you have 3 beautiful children. It's only an hour show, so I have to fast forward a little bit. We have three beautiful children, and you're at home sometimes, and sometimes you're away. So here's what happens to a relationship, Sergeant Skipper, when you're not there as a partner, when you're not there as a father. So I'll just take it from the first question. What happens to the relationship when you're not there to meet the demands of her having a bad day at the office, or, the day in, day out chaotic stuff that life presents us at times? How did you manage that relationship through the years? 29 years is a long time. How did you do that?
Well, I was making a point to call home every night. Right, talk to her. It just gets to the point where, like, if I could call home, I would actually get upset about it, because I didn't talk to her that particular day, because I knew that she had stuff she wanted to say about what went on that day, about what the kids were doing, how her day was. She probably wanted to know what my day was like as well.
And there's 2 different things going on here in a relationship with the family. There's the relationship between you and your spouse, and then there's the relationship as a family, and then there's another relationship that you have individually with your children. With the relationship with your wife, how did you manage that? I know you're talking every night, but when you come back home, okay, how do you pick it back up?
Well, you don't have to try to pick it back up right away. You got to realize that while you were going, that she was in charge of it all. Okay, so now, as far as the kids are concerned, they go. They were used to going to her for decisions and things they needed or things they wanted to do and things like that. Mm-hmm. And you're home now, and it's just a case of, like, you just don't step into the role that, like, you had when you left. You have to ease back into it. And it's a case of, like, if you tell her, like, no, you're not doing that, and so that, it was funny because I did it one time. She just looked at me, like, and asked me, like, well, like, who are you to say, because you haven't been here for a year? I'm like, yeah, you're right.
Right. So, in the relationship, I dissect these topics, I really get down in there, Sergeant Skipper. So for your relationship, when you're away for so long, it is great, obviously, that you talk every night, but it's not physical, and there's so much more that's missing when you're not together, day after day, and if a year at a time. Let's face it, that's a long time. So I understand walking in and you're a little bit of a stranger, and it's awkward, and it's easing back in. But how do you ease back into the physical part with your wife in the bedroom, the intimacy? How do you pick up that part of the relationship? How do you manage that so that it's happy and successful? What did you 2 do to make sure that was always put together?
Well, in case when I do come home, we usually got a babysitter, or one of the, maybe my oldest son watched the younger 2. He went out and just started the whole courtship thing again, out to dinner, to the movies, okay, and just, getting used to each other once again. Do that for a week or 2, and start to come back to normal.
To keep it fresh. I love that. And you have to do that to keep it fresh. We're going to get a break right now, Sergeant Skipper. And when we come back, I want to get more into what it takes to keep a happy home. Back in a moment. we're back. You're listening to Bear This and That. I'm your host, Cynthia DeLeonardo. I am honored and so privileged today to have as my guest Sergeant Jon Skipper with us today. And we're talking about what life is like with relationships when you're in the military. How do we manage with our families? And how do we keep the family intact and the relationships close? Sergeant Skipper, welcome back.
Thank you.
So I would like for you to help out our audience with some of the tips that you and your wife did to keep the intimacy and the closeness that you had when you got married, and how do you keep that going when you're deployed for, a year at a time, and how does that magic come back into the relationship each time?
Well, what I'm going is it's all about communication. Okay. Talking to each other, separated and, discussing what we want each day and what, problems need to be worked out. That's part of it. It might not be physically there, but you still have the capability of support, okay, and the information she might need and take care of a certain issue or what's going on that may not have been taken care of when you left.
You started this relationship with both of you being great talkers.
Yeah, the whole relationship was built. We actually met. We were together for about 10 days before I left for Germany, and for the following year or 30 months, we communicated weekly, not only by telephone but with letters, probably about 3 to 4 letters a week as well.
The letters.
Okay,
that's
so
wonderful.
like I said before, we got to know each other quite well before we got married.
I would say that the fact that you both were such great talkers really helped your relationship thrive through the years and kept it strong because you were used to talking. You were both talking. So you said it, the communication and the romance, when you say letters, so were some of those love letters, by the way?
I have to say the majority were.
That's awesome. Love letters, I find that there's a lot of things that sometimes we feel awkward to say, but we will write it because we'll sit and we'll listen to our heart. And as we're listening to our heart, you're writing. And the most beautiful things can come if you take a moment to do it. And I find that so romantic, and I think there's so much missed when we don't write our feelings down and send them off to our partner. So the fact that you did that is a beautiful thing. I bet and you still have them. That sounds like quite a collection. 3 letters a week.
Yeah, I would say, if I remember right, there's probably about between 60 and 70 of them.
Wow, that's beautiful. You still have them all.
She does.
That's beautiful. And then you can go back because it's timeless. You can go back and reread. If you're having a fight, I would say go back and read those love letters, and I think that can just chill us all out, just go back to where it started and really what really is important here and reread those love letters. I love it. So you really have it down. You're great communicators. You're talking. I want to talk a little bit about the family, your children, just a little bit with that relationship. And when you ease back in, how is she able to hand the reins back over to you in the family decisions?
Well, as far as the kids concerned, you got to remember you miss a lot of birthdays. You miss a lot of football games, like science fairs and other school events like that, And, it, pretty much removes you from their life for a year or depending on, how long you're gone. Pretty much a case is when I come back, it was pretty much a case here. like Mike has a football game tonight, make sure you're there, or Mike has practice, so, you need to take him to practice, or maybe James has a project at school, which you need to take him to that. It's just a case of, like, just getting back into your kids' lives, exactly, of being there and, doing what you did prior to leaving.
What tips can you give our audience, Sergeant Skipper, on getting back into the family?
Well, in many cases when you get back, everybody is like, happy to see you, or maybe it's a case of like, they're wondering like, how long are you going to be there? Okay, yes. At first,
right.
And sometimes they're reluctant to like come to you for things. They'll just go right to their mom, who's been there, for them for like the last 12, 14 months.
Yes.
Okay, but eventually, as you do more and, with them, it converts back to the way it was before you left.
One thing that I would like to bring up is the fear. The fear, and not only, are you absent, but the fear that must go on in a partner's mind of your safety. And I would imagine the children at a certain point, as they become older and they realize why you're away, what's occurring possibly. So,
that's true. Part of like we're seeing, wonder every day, like what I was doing, where I was doing it. In the first place, she knew it was a very friendly environment. Okay, so she would wait for that particular time every night for me to call, and if I call a little bit later, she'd be like a little bit stressed out, worried that that call wasn't coming.
Yes. On either side, was there ever a time in your marriage between the two of you that you worried that one might not be there when the union came back? Was there any fear of infidelity on either side ever in your 20?
Oh, no, not at all. Not at all. No, there was never any fear of that. Never even crossed my mind while I was deployed.
That right there is quite a bit of peace of mind, isn't it?
Yeah. A lot of people who are deployed, as my wife put it, the one day, it's pretty stupid to send somebody a Dear John letter while you're deployed. I mean, it's enough to keep your mind on what you're doing. Then you don't need to start worrying about like what's going on at home, and if you have anything when you get home. Like I've seen a lot of people, lose everything to their unfaithful spouse due to the fact that they decided they were going to what they thought might be greener pastures, and since they had the power of attorney, took everything, either sold the cars or even in some cases even sold the house while their partner was deployed.
Wow. That's incredible. How common is that, Sergeant Skipper?
I don't want to say it's common, but it does happen.
Yes. That wasn't an issue. You have a very strong union, very strong marriage. So as far as you coming back, them thinking it's temporary. So by the time everyone got settled with having you back home, was it very often that you were deployed?
Well, not just deployed, but there's other things that you're assigned to, like doing some duties or schools in different states where you're going maybe 10 weeks at a time or maybe a month at a time. And, every time you do that, it's just a little case where you step out of the picture for a little bit. My wife took over in her role as both father and mother. And, it just depends on the length of time you're going.
Even though we have great relationships, sometimes, and this is very normal, there is a tad of resentment that starts to happen as a single parent when we take on this role, because what happens is there is absolutely no time left for me time when you're raising children and you're running around and you're working, and things can get very hairy, and the focus is now primarily on the family and not yourself. There's no me time, no friend time. How did she manage? Was her family available and friends available to her?
Well, her family was pretty local, so when needed, she could talk to them, or like maybe have her mother or sister come down and like watch the kids for a little bit while she went out and did her favorite thing, like shopping.
That's great. Shopping does it, especially when we're a little under duress. So she had mom. So you know what? That's great that she had that. Because the fact that when we suck up so much responsibility, whether we have to or not, the fact of the matter is there's very little time left over, and we run tired, and the focus is on, the children and making sure everything is squared away. So it sounds like you just have a fantastic marriage.
Well, it's probably the best you can actually have, I guess. We understand each other. She knows what I do for a living, and it's going to take me away. But she also understands the benefits as far as what the military brings as well.
Right. She knew it from the very beginning, the demands, and I'm sure there was some thought. And your courtship, she also realized what this would mean in the future, raising children possibly alone, intermittently throughout your relationship. I would like to talk a little bit about not only does the family change, when you're away, but what happens with you? Because you have changed. With each environment that you're in, you have to be a little changed each time you come back home.
Well, that is excuse me, that's definitely true. Especially when you're like living in a hostile environment for over a year. Okay, a lot of your point of views change, the way you see things change. You have to come home and actually like learn to relax again.
Yes.
Okay. Especially when you're living in a military environment where everything's, cross your T's and dot your I's. Okay. It's the case when you come home and you have to realize that your family is not part of the military. Okay. So
right.
some of the things they do doesn't exactly like suit you, but then again you have to realize, hold on, I'm not in that environment anymore, and pretty much keep them, don't say anything about it and just let it go.
That's easier said than done, though. That's easier said than done. I would say, what were you like when you went back home? What would you say would be the time in your life that you went back home and you realized, because I would think that you didn't feel the change, but that your family could see the change.
Yeah, I guess I was home probably about maybe 4 or 5 days, and my wife came up to me and said, "You know what? You're not the same person when you left." And I just looked at her and I thought about it. Well, I think I am. And then she started pointing out some things, and I just said, it's a whole different environment now. Okay, so eventually what happens is that you'll convert back into the lifestyle and the situation that you're currently in, from the one I had when I was deployed.
If I could, just go step back for a moment, when you say she did point out things, 4 days, almost a week that you were home, that she saw. What did she point out? Can you share that with us?
She pointed out that I had a little bit of a temper, and that I wasn't very receptive to a lot of the things that had changed when I was gone.
So were you not flexible? We know that when we have children, we have to be very flexible and patient.
Well, the flexibility wasn't there, and I wasn't very patient. So when I said I wanted like the trash out, I meant I wanted the trash out, and I had made that point clear, like, not 5 minutes from now, I want it out now. Where it was the case that, normally I would just tell my kids, put out the trash, and they would put out the trash, but they didn't have to necessarily jump right on it.
So what would happen if they didn't jump right on it?
Pretty much yell at them.
Okay. All right, so did you see this after a while that you didn't feel calm and your temper went from 0 to 60 and you weren't very patient? You got a hold of that. How did you change that?
Well, it's like I said, it's just a case it takes time from switching from environments.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Coming back from, deployment in that environment where everything was like, do it now, do it right away, make sure it's right, to back to like home where one of the things you should have done was just like, flop yourself down on the couch and watch TV for a few days and not deal with anything, which I wish I would have done, but I didn't do it that way. So eventually over time, after, discussions with my wife and stuff like that, what changed and, what I don't need to do, it eventually converted back.
I would imagine that is very difficult to do. A lot of military folks, when they do come back home, that there's a lot of depression that comes back with them because of the switching of the gears, if you will, as you pointed out, and being able to switch environments and, not being able to turn that part of their life off. It is very, very challenging.
Well, that's true. I mean, after a year or so of deployment, you're set in one lifestyle, okay, which is very military.
Yes.
You're used to dealing with situations where you don't normally deal with as far as in your civilian life is concerned. And then one day it's all over, you come home, you out process, you come back to Pennsylvania, and it's like now it's time to adjust to being home again. And it does take a little time.
It takes time, but it's doable, you're saying?
Oh, yeah, it's very doable.
But it takes time. And when you say it takes time, what is the span of time you speak of?
Well, I think pretty much with me, took a little bit about a year, actually.
That's a long time. That's a long time to adjust, right?
Yeah, it's a long time to adjust because, like, you live a year constantly of, one way of life, and then to come back and not have that anymore. As you know, the military is very structured, okay? And, you come back and things aren't so structured anymore.
Right.
So you kind of get, like, a little bit lost in yourself, okay, making the adjustment.
Right.
So, it does take a little time.
We're going to take a break, Sergeant Skipper. When we come back, I would like to go over the tips on how we can help those readjust when they're switching their environments like that. Back in a moment.
So deeply that I ask you this, sweetheart, why should we quarrel ever? Why can't we be enough clever never to part? Every time we say goodbye, I die a little. Every time we say goodbye, I wonder why a little, why the gods above me, who must be in the know, think so little of me, they allow you to go. When you're near, there's such an air of spring about it. I can hear a lark somewhere begin to sing about it. There's no love song finer, but how strange the change from major to minor. Every time we say goodbye.
And we're back. You're listening to Bear This and That. I'm your host, Cynthia DeLeonardo. I am honored and privileged to have as my guest today Sergeant Jon Skipper. We're talking about the military and relationships and our family. Sergeant Skipper, I just want to get into what tips can you give our audience to help them switch gears and so that it's easier. Is there a way to do it? Now you say it took a year to be able to switch gears.
Yeah, it's just a case of where you generally ease back into it as you're home. It's not something that happens right away due to the fact that, you know, your last year you've been mentally conditioned to do things one way, and when you get home, everybody's going in the opposite direction, in the direction you're going in.
Okay.
So it's pretty much a case of where, you know, both sides have to understand that, you know, what's going on, and, you know, it takes a little bit of time to, like, get everybody in the right direction again, I guess you might want to say. And you do that by, you know, pretty much talking to your spouse and your kids, gradually getting yourself back into their life, you know, as far as taking interest in what they're doing again.
Yes, so it doesn't feel divided. Is that the feeling you would say it felt like when you went back home, that it felt like it was divided? Did you ever at any point think that it was intentional on their part?
I didn't think it was intentional on their part. It's just the way they were, you know, think they were and they're used to. And I was actually part of that before I left. It's kind of a case of, like, it was them against me for a little bit.
Okay.
It's like, well, that's not quite the way I thought it should go. You know, but it's the way it does go as far as the civilian life is concerned. So it's really, you have to take that step back and pretty much, you know, just let things go as they go. if you don't, then you're gonna like drive yourself nuts because your kids aren't doing what you expect them to do, and you've got to realize they're not from that. What's the word I'm looking for? Orientated society you lived in for that year or so.
Your wife was able to identify the changes in you, but with children it's so much more complicated because sometimes they can't find the words or they don't know what the changes are because they just don't know. How did you handle that with them?
Well, actually, they had a word for it because they used to tell me, "Man, you got mean."
Mean.
And I thought about it. I'm not being mean. But actually, to them, I was due to the fact that, from that environment and deployment, that you had that standard of how you say things and, how it comes across. But to them, it was just like, that was a major change because you used to be a guy that was, I guess, pretty soft-spoken with them. They're darn good kids, and they were raised quite well by my wife and I. But it was usually a case before I deployed, I would just say something, and then they would go ahead and do it. It wasn't like right away, but when I came back, it's more the case I expected it done right away. Okay, from the environment I was in. And, one of the things was like, why don't you go clean your room? that was a biggie on my part because, it was like, I sat there on deployment and from the barracks that we had, I was pretty much like scrubbing the floor and sweeping every day to get the sand out of. So, when I walk into a room and, like, this place needs cleaning, so. And it really did, but, as far as I was concerned, it did.
How did it make you feel when your children viewed you that way?
At first it was like totally like confused. Like, how am I being mean? Okay. Then eventually, you start taking notice, to like your tone and how you say it. And eventually, you start noticing some other things too from what you were, how it was before you left. And eventually what happens is that you start converting back to your normal civilian life.
What's wonderful about your story is that you were able to see it. But what happens when those people can't see it and can't identify what's happening within? So you came home and you didn't see it right away and you weren't able to identify it, but your wife did. And you did get feedback from your children. So with time, you were able to see what was going on and I guess kind of take a look at yourself through a different pair of lenses. To see what you were and where you what you came back to. You were able to be mindful and you were able to work on it because of that.
Well, that's true, but there are situations where people do come back and they probably were in worse areas than I was in. Military has many programs to help them work through that. As long as they're willing to go.
And can we mention some of those programs, Sergeant Skipper?
Yeah, sure. You have the family assistance programs where they work with you as far as reintegration into your own family. Okay, you sit down with a counselor and you and your wife and kids talk. And they bring up like the changes in the military spouse and what changed in he or she and what they're doing now and the major differences like you have people who suffer from like PTSD and we have programs to take care of that and there's so many different programs out there. All they have to do is go to like Military One Source and they can look up the different programs and contact those people. It's all free.
And those programs help them with what specifically?
Well, it helps them like identify what their issues are, if they have any medical issues or mental issues from what they were doing for that year. Helps them realize that they're no longer in those situations and what they need to do to reintegrate back into their normal everyday life.
That's fantastic. It has been such an honor and a pleasure having you on the show today. I thank you so very much for sharing your life with us. Just briefly, where are you at today? And happy anniversary.
Yeah, it's coming up. Right now, I'm actually up at 14 Town Gap in Pennsylvania at work.
Wonderful. Okay, wonderful. Have a wonderful holiday. I appreciate you being here and sharing your life. And we want to mention the great music that we've had today. We've had Betcha by Golly Wow, the Stylistics, and Every Time We Say Goodbye by Rod Stewart. And we want to bring it on home to Love Wins, Bill Cantos. You can catch me on Facebook, Bear This and That Relationship Radio, and Twitter at Bear This and That. Happy Thanksgiving. Love you. Mwah.
Yeah. I've heard it my whole life. The nicest guys always finish last. Look out for yourself, they say. The golden rule is just a thing of the past. People say fighting dirty is the only game the world's gonna understand. Well, not me, not today. 'Cause that's not the way that I play. I say love wins, yeah. You can cheat, you can lie, but by and by, love wins, yeah, love wins. I know it's a cruel world. I read the same morning paper as you. I know these are real hard times. Some people never even make it through. Well, it seems like the devil's working overtime, and he's got the upper hand. But hold on, take a look, 'cause I